Hello again, everybody. I'm Larry Hamilton. Welcome to my YouTube painting channel. Thank you for watching. Today we're doing an oil painting, and it's another scene from an area that I'm really partial to in Montana. It's called North Fork Road, and it's from a photograph by Jack Bell. And I'm going to show you in a second what I've done to the photograph to make it our painting reference for today. We're going to be painting on 11 by 14 stretch canvas here, and be using the Bob Ross method pretty much totally here, and using a set of his paints. I'll go through those in a minute. So I'm going to go over to my computer now, and I'll be right back, and we'll get started. Okay, here I am at my computer, and this is the original photograph that Jack Bell provided. You see his logo there on the lower left, and he gives me permission to use his photographs for my paintings, and I really appreciate it. This is a scene that's not bad. It's just basically a road going off into the distance, and the mountains that I really like are over on the right side. So what I did was, since I didn't want to paint all these fences along the left side here, I decided to just kind of crop it down and move everything up to the upper right. So I took this same photograph and just moved it up to the right, upper right quadrant, I guess you would call it. And I've taken this view. And so I'm going to do a couple things. I'm going to put some tall trees on the right side to kind of tie the composition, the foreground to the background. And I'm going to try to turn it into a winter scene as well. So these images are out on my website, and there are links below this video that you're watching, and you can go out and get those for your reference. If you want to paint the original photograph, that's your prerogative, but this is what I'm going to work on today. So I've taken this photo, as I usually do, and sent it out to griddrawingtool.com and thrown a 5x4 grid over the top of it just to kind of get the placement of everything. And as you can see, you know, they call Montana the big sky country, and this painting is going to be probably at least almost 50% sky, and with some mountains there in the background. And to kind of give that some more scale, I intend to put at least a couple big trees on the right side here to kind of connect the darker foreground and the road to the background. And then in this field, instead of being all of this sort of ochre color grass, I guess, that's been left over after harvesting, it's probably wheat or something that they've harvested, I'm going to turn that into a snow area. And so it's going to be really a snow scene with a lot of white and shadows and grays and that sort of color. And then I did a black and white. As I always do, I took all the color out of it to kind of get an idea where the darks were. So you have this big dark band kind of going across the middle, which is not the greatest for all compositions, but if I can put some white back in there and make this look like a snow scene, I can give it a lot of depth. And if I put some large trees in the front, as you know, Bob Ross always threw some great big trees on the front of his work. So we'll put one or two on the right side, but nothing on the left side, since there's really a road over there. And then I also have a sketch for you. I sort of just did a rough idea of what I think this painting will look like when we get finished with the sky. The sky is probably going to be darker than I show it here in this sketch, but I am going to have some of these pine trees in the foreground that are tall enough to go above the mountains, and that's going to give us a little better composition for the way I cropped this anyway. So I'm going to go back to my easel now, and I'll go through the paints and brushes, and we'll get started. Okay, so my brushes, I have my 1-inch flat, I have my half round brush. These are probably what I'm going to use instead of my large 2-inch brushes on this size canvas. I have a couple of filberts here that are Bob Ross filberts that I'll use maybe for some of those pine trees in the background. Have a fan brush that I'll use for the snow and that sort of thing. I have my couple of script liners here that I will use for some of the fine details. And then I have my trusty palette knife that I like to use as well. And then the colors, let me go around the colors again and tell you what we have in the palette. And these paintings, you heard me say it already if you were watching live, but I'm redoing this so I can have a better quality edited video when I'm finished. Okay, around the palette again, the paints are Bob Ross paints, and we have titanium white here. we're leaving out phthalo blue, Prussian blue, midnight black, leaving out Van Dyke brown, putting in dark sienna. We don't have a lot of brown in this painting, very little actually. Alizarin crimson that we're going to be able to use for get some of the wintry colors and wintry tones in the distance. Sap green for the trees, leaving out cad yellow, adding yellow ochre, leaving out Indian yellow, leaving out bright red, and adding my Grumbacher ultraviolet. So these are generally sort of winter scene colors. They're darker colors, they're cooler colors. The only warm color I have on here really is yellow ochre, and I'll probably use that in some of the foreground snow to show some of those, I don't know, these little clippings or whatever they are in this foreground sticking through. And then I also have my liquid white here that I'm going to be starting with, and we'll be painting with that. Now let me go back and set up my paints here again, or I'm sorry, set up my, there we go, that's what we want. All right, so now we have everything. I think everybody's seeing it, looks like. Greg, you're seeing it? Great, good to hear that. Thanks for letting me know. I would have hated to do this whole painting with you sitting there looking at the sketch. That would have driven me nuts. All right, I think we're ready to go. So I'm going to start with my, I did mention, I think you didn't see this either, that I have this pencil sketch on here, and typically when you put the pencil sketch on, you put liquid white over it, you lose it, or it blends in with the paint, you lose it. So I've been putting on last couple, 3 paintings this workable fixative, it's called, and I spray it on here just over the pencil marks, and it basically seals it so that it doesn't smear, it doesn't dissolve, it doesn't come off, and it leaves it in a position that I can actually see what's going on when I put my liquid white on. If I keep it thin enough, I'll be able to see that through there. So it makes it much easier to keep graphite out of the paint and keep from giving it distorted. All right, we're ready to go. I think everything's running. I don't have a director or a producer here. It's just me doing everything. So I'm going to start now with my liquid white and my 1-inch brush, and we're going to start putting on the background here. And I want to have this sky, I want it to be fairly dark because I'm going to try to make make it into a winter scene. It's going to make the sky darker, which is not unusual for a sky. And I'm putting it on really, really, really thin here, and you can see that the marks, my pencil marks, are not moving, they're not blurring, they're not blending, they're not picking up. I'm going to put this liquid white down the whole thing, and but it's going to be a very light coat. And I think I've shown you before when we do the test that how to determine how thick your white paint is. And you can see I just put a heavy load, probably, I don't know if you can see it that well or not, but I did cover up some of the pencil mark here. And actually it is thick enough to cover it. If I put a heavy coat of white paint on here, liquid white, it will cover everything up. And so that's a good way to tell if I've got too much. When you finish coating your canvas with liquid white, you should be able to touch it and get almost nothing off on your finger, just a very little bit. Down here where I had a heavier load, if I touch it, I'm probably getting more on my finger from it. So you can see how light that coating of liquid white is on this canvas. All you want that for is to get the paint to move, to help you put these colors on and not have to spend a whole tube of paint just to get the colors on this canvas. So, all right, so we're going to start with our sky, and it's going to be my titanium white and a very touch of phthalo blue and a touch of violet. Get some more of this over here. And this tends to be a better color for a winter sky if we put something like this in. And because it's got the white on the canvas already, I didn't clean my brush out. We're going to get a lot of lightening of this color. And I can add some blue to it here and there. And I'm just picking up enough to sort of change the tone a little bit so it's not all violet. I want to see some blue coming through in some places. I'm going to see some black. I'm going to pick up a little of my black, move it over here. I'm going to put another coat on this so it's going to get darker, but right now I want to get a sort of a base coat on, and I'm just mixing Prussian blue, midnight black, and whatever's in my brush. And because I want above these mountains, I want this to be fairly dark, because I want you to see the snow on top of these mountains, because they are covered with snow. So I'm going to keep coming back here until we get this sky in dark enough to suit me. Get this covered in over here. So that's like one coat, and I'm going to come back now and start putting a little bit more on, darken up some more of this, particularly down here toward the top of these mountains. Mix it up again with the blue and the black, and I'm going to even put some alizarin crimson in it shortly here to I haven't cleaned this brush at all. I'm just going over and over, letting it blend and mix on the canvas. And it's a little hard for you to see that probably. It doesn't come through quite as strong on the video as it does to me when my face is right up next to it here. I'm going to keep going and get a little more darks here, get some more up here. I want this to definitely show some dark. I don't want a lot of menacing clouds, but I just want it to look like we've got a lot going on. Spots in this sky that are down here. Make sure I get down to the top of those mountains. Okay. Come back now and get some more violet, and we're going to put in a few more colors here to add some clouds, add some shadows. Okay. Still have that blue in there. I'm going to keep a little bit of that blue. I think that Prussian blue is good to leave in there. I don't want to take it out because the sky is really blue back in there in some areas where you can kind of see through it. So it's just a good mixture of different tones, different colors here that are all part of the sky. And I'm going to just keep working on this for a little bit. Since this is almost 50% of the painting, I'm going to try to, I don't want to take half my time on it, but I certainly want to make sure I have a lot of color in here, tone. The alizarin crimson, I like that down. The alizarin crimson, I like to have it down this area, so it sort of looks like a horizon. It looks like there. I want that alizarin crimson also. Where do I want it? I want it down in here somewhere. I want it at the bottom of these mountains. I'm just going to throw a little bit in there to kind of give us another. See, these mountains aren't going to be very big. Light, dark, value change. Okay, now got a lot of that done. I'm going to come back now and take my brush, wipe a lot of this paint out of this brush. I'm still not washing it out with thinner yet. I'm going to put a few clouds in there. There was a few spots of clouds. I'm going to come back and just get pure titanium white now on this brush and see if we can kind of put in some areas that give us a little bit of the look of clouds, or like this. Okay. I'm really not trying to follow the photograph. I'm just trying to put in some different values here to give me something to work with. And I want to make sure this is dark, good and dark above these mountains. All right. And then if you remember last time I came out with this little soft, very soft blender brush. So when you have a lot of streaks here, you can see this is pretty heavy. You see my brush strokes there. When I put those in, I can leave that in like that, or I can come back and try to give some soft blending this way, but I can also blend with this brush. And I just take it and just let it very lightly soften these edges a little bit. Soften this paint so that it's not too obvious. But it does look like sort of a bit of a threatening sky there if you stand back and look at it. When I look at it through what the camera sees here, my monitor at the back, and it's these changes in value and color that kind of give it this kind of a rumbling look. Where you got some threat of snow coming in there. When you have some snow, you want to make sure the sky is usually darker than the snow on the ground, and it's going to make that snow. It's going to make these mountains stand up when I start putting those in here. It's going to make those stand out really nice. Okay, let's try just a touch more of some dark color in here in some spots. And you see I have a tone change from sort of the lavender over here to sort of the more black or gray over here on this side. So it gives a change of value and color. All right, I'm going to stop. I don't want to mess with this too much longer, but I do want to get this sort of a turbulent looking sky, and I think looks like it's churning pretty good. All right, so much for that. We're at the 21-minute mark. Holy cow. Really moving here. All right, so let's take I'm going to take this brush and sort of put in below these mountains. I'm going to put in some darker colors in these mountains just to have something to put the white over. Doesn't have to be real dark, but I want it to be dark enough that when I run my knife over it, that we're going to get these dark little pockets of darkness to come out. And how many times have you heard you gotta have a dark so you can see the light. You gotta have the dark to see the light. Okay. Now, palette knife. We'll roll on top of the brush here, or on top of the knife, and we're going to just start down here and start putting in these nice mountain tops here. They're going to go over this way, up this way. I'm pushing kind of hard with this. I'm coming down and hitting it and pulling down really hard. And I don't want these to look like little triangles and just like teepees. I want them to look like they're arranged and they have different heights and different widths. That's all part of a good composition, is to make these look like they have different levels and different widths. Okay, so this is coming down here, over here. I got need more paint than that, folks. If you have any questions, please please put them in the chat window. Yeah, Rocky, this liquid white does. That's why I put it on very thin, because it does just suck up your paint color, and it lightens everything up very much. Okay, so that's a pretty decent range. I've been on this North Fork Road before. Didn't get the colors that I didn't get the same mountain range like the photograph shows, but right now it looks like I got light coming from the left. was going to have it coming from the other side, but I think I'm going to stick with this. I like the way this is looking in the window here on my screen that I can see. And so I'm just going to leave it that way. I'm going to come back now with a little bit of dark, some blacks here, darker colors, and see if I can just put in a few hit and miss. This is pretty, almost too much maybe. I certainly want it to be darker on the right side. I'm going to pick up some more of my violet. We'll put in a few things here on this side to indicate where the light's coming from. Just a touch in here maybe, down this way, over here like that. Okay, so I'm just getting in, throwing in some of these things that look like we're getting another range of mountains actually. And over here on this side we'll put a few over here like that, maybe some down here. Okay. This almost looks too dark. I want to thin it down just a little, give myself some change. I'm not trying to do a realistic painting of the photograph. I'm interpreting and I'm making it more impressionistic. I think that might be enough for these mountains here. Put a little bit of a darker color right there to show there's another mountain there. Okay, that might be a little too dark, but I'm going to just leave it at that for now and just come back and start working my way down, top to bottom, back to front. Top to bottom, back to front. You know what that means. I start painting from the top to the bottom. Start from the farthest thing away, which is the sky, clouds, mountains, trees, back to front. All right, so now let's see. I want to have a bit of this mist in here in front of these trees. I'm going to take my brush. I still haven't washed this brush out, but I'm going to come in here and see what happens if I put in some of this. It's picking up more gray. Okay, so now we've got a pretty good range of mountains, pretty good set of sky, good sky. And I'm going to start now with some of my, I'm going to lay in my snow back there in the distance. Because I want these trees that I'm going to put in, I want them to go over this snow. So I'm going to just start putting this in. Maybe I'll put a little bit of a tone in this snow. Not much. Maybe a little bit of my violet. And just start laying it in here. Across here like that. And the reason for this is I want to be able to leave gaps in the trees that I put in here, across here, this whole line of trees that go across here. I want you to see the snow and some of the shadows back there. But I don't want to destroy this little bit of mist that we got going on back there. So I want it to look, all this adds to the depth of your painting. It helps it look like there's a lot more depth in it. And really this whole foreground is going to be snow. I'm going to throw this in here and just pick up a few shadows of, and I can redo this and I can make these, the definition of these hills and valleys here in the foreground a lot more distinct, but I just want to get a base undercoat here. All right, now I think we're ready to start on some of these trees in this middle ground. We're going to put this row of trees. There's probably 1, 2, 3, I don't know, 4 or 5 rows of trees there that that come across. And so I'm going to use because they're in the distance, instead of using my big brush, I'm going to use this filbert. And I'll see how that works. If I don't like that, I'll come back and use my fan brush. I've got another fan brush that's smaller. Somewhere, where did it go? Oh, there it is. Okay. So I've got this smaller fan brush, and I could actually use it to put in some of these trees in the background. I may change my mind on that filbert. I think I will try to use this fan brush. So these trees have green in them. They have some darker greens where you can add some Prussian blue with the green and get a darker green. You can get the pure sap green if you don't add anything to it. And you can come back and take some yellow ochre and add in and get a warmer green. I don't know if you can see that. Those different colors of green by just adding ochre up here, sap green purely, sap green in the middle, add some Prussian blue, and you get a darker green. All right. So let's start with some of these darker greens. And I'm going to come across here and start putting in some doesn't look very dark to me right now, but I'm going to throw these in and see how they look. I got to come all the way down here. Darker, darker, darker. Down around this area is where these trees sort of end up. And they got to be small. You got to keep them tiny because they're pretty far off, right? So I'm going to throw in a few things. I'm going to leave some gaps in here to make it look like there's maybe a walk path or some way you can get back to these mountains. I think this fan brush is doing better than I would have done with that filbert, maybe. Prussian blue. I want these ones in the far distance to have more of a blue cast to them. So we're going all the way across. We're putting this border across here, but I'm breaking it up. I'm not leaving it just like a solid. I don't want a solid dark line across here. I'm trying to give it some variation. And putting the darkest dark of these trees on the right side of the tree so that it still gives you the idea that the sun is coming from the left, whatever sun there is, the light. And these get smaller as they go back in the distance here. So they're going to go all the way off the canvas. And as they get smaller, it will help with the illusion that they're further away. And this is sort of it's kind of coming out this way toward us. Okay, so we could spend a lot of time here just messing with trees. Like I said, there's a lot of trees in here, and if you notice the bottom, I don't have a straight line across there. You don't want a straight line. You want this to go up and down, kind of like musical notes almost. You're playing a little symphony across here, so you want them to be higher, up and down, wider, longer, that type of thing. As they get over here, they have a little more, some of these have a little more of this ochre in them, so I'm going to pick up a few more ochre colors and start throwing a few of those in over here. We'll just pipe it all out there like that, all right? So now I can come back and fill in, add some taller ones in the front, and see how this is going to work with the bit of a, I'm not crazy about that. That looks kind of too much green in it, actually. Come back and get a little more of my white. Picking up all that green. Giving a little bit of a shadow here. Okay, let's stop with that. I'm going to clean this brush out. Yeah, that snow is All right, so I've got areas that look like we got snow back there in the back. I've got some areas here that have snow. All right, now I'm going to come back and keep going with these trees. I'm going to get some more of this Prussian blue and sap green, maybe a little black. See if we can put a few more in front here that sort of tie this together a little bit more. I like having these variations in this ground behind the back. Putting in a few darker things. I think I'm going to put in some of this, kind of ad-libbing now, folks. I'm just trying to see if I can put in some of these warmer colors here to kind of tie the grasses and the snow. I think that helps make that look a little better there instead of having that green snow all over the place. Should have known better than that. Hey, we are still practicing, right? This was a field that was cut, some sort of a, I think it was probably a wheat field or something. Okay. All right, now clean this brush out. All right, let me come back and get me some violet and green, midnight black and green. I'm going to put a few more very specific trees in front of these. Have some dark on them. They're going to go up and kind of overlap what's there in some cases. And don't want a lot of that, but I do want to kind of extend this so that it's not, I've made it more of a horizontal plane there, which I didn't really particularly want to do. So let's just fill this in, add some connectors here to make that look like we've got things in front and so forth. All right, so it looks like a field of Christmas tree field almost. All right, I'm just sort of feeling my way around here through this right now. All right, so much for that. We're going to leave this snow in the front. I've got this big, the trees that I'm going to put in over here. I think it's time to do that. So what are we going to do for the trees? We're going to use our colors here that we have, my big fan brush. And here we go, folks. Here's our, call it the bravery test. Bob Ross used to say, try your bravery test. You're going to come up here and go blam. Take these almost all the way off the bottom here and try another one. Black, violet, something. Give him a little friend. And maybe even another friend over there. As long as I can show the snow behind and show the mountains behind, this will look very realistic. Okay. There's just another little couple of things going on here. All right. I don't think I need to do too much more to that. Maybe I'll put a few dark trunk-like things in here. I can actually scrape some out if I want. I want this to really just kind of go off the canvas down here. Let me close that corner in. Okay, now we've got all this snow out here. And I'm going to get me a little bit of my violet, mix it up with some of my white, and start putting in some shadows. Now remember, we got the sun coming from the left this time, so I'm going to try to see if I can work in some shadows here that give this something other than, I don't want this just to be pure whiteness out there, right? So I'm using a light violet, and I'm putting in some shadows. It look like there's something moving in the ground here that it's got some topical, I don't know, undulations you might call that, I don't know. So any shadows that I show should move to the right. And see, I think I'll probably clean this out. Okay, something like this. All right, so you see some undulations out there. I'm going to come back and pick up some of my ochre, which is a complementary color to this violet that I've got. I'm going to just kind of come in here and throw in some very light things that look like the field that has been harvested, and there's some things sticking up in some areas that where maybe the snow is a little lighter. Okay, there's more of them down here in the foreground, because we're going to run this road right off the side here. This is going to help give us some more of our perspective. Like this. And we got this road that comes down here. So the road is probably dark sienna and white. And it's got some snow over it, so I'm going to put the dark on first. And we're just going to come down here and run this road right down here like this. Like this. So this is going to close in our left corner. We got the really dark over here on the right, closing that corner in, and now we're going to have this really dark over here from the road, going to close in this left corner. Okay, and I want it to be darker here as it goes up. It has to get a little wider here. And okay, so we've got that pretty well covered. Now we got to put some value in it. The problem is because I have to look at the shadows now. Because my sun is now coming from this way, I've got different shadows on this than I would have had if I had the sun coming from the other way, which is what I originally thought I was going to do. So let's figure that out. Okay, so what can we do? We can put some lighter tones here. We'll start putting in some things that look like we've got some light going on. I still want this to be darker at the bottom of these little areas where this meets the road. So let's throw some of that in here. Yeah, that's getting better. Get some more dark in there. And add some more ochre and dark sienna. Just trying to get a something that makes this look a little more composition already. Very light up here. Come on here, folks. What am I going to do with this? About finished here. Okay, so let's throw in some things here. Maybe we've got something over here on the left side that's giving us a big dark shadow here. You can kind of block this in a little more. And that closes off this left corner even better. Wouldn't be any grasses in it, so let's just kind of do that, and then I'll get my knife out. We'll come back and put some more snow on top of this and see if we can help give this a little more, I don't know, it's going to have a little bit of a gravelly-like substance to it here. Now this is again just hit and miss. It's like, you know, the snow's been down and it's okay. Now, what else we got left to do? There's not a whole lot I have to do. I do want to put maybe some. I'm not sure I like that. I think I'm going to use my script liner instead. And put in some lighter trunks here. Script liner with a lot of liquid, a lot of thinner in it. Gives a very runny consistency. So rather than use the scrape out, I'm going to just throw in some marks here that help us define these trees a little better. And maybe throw in a few more these yellow things here to give us some more stuff growing beside the road is going to be taller because they wouldn't have cut it very well. So we'll do that, and maybe put in just a little, put a little snow maybe on these tree branches. Let me get this brush cleaned out here. All right, I think my liquid white, or not liquid white, but my titanium white has got some of this thinner in it. And maybe come in here and just put a few of the lighten them up a little bit so it looks like there might be some snow there. You don't have to do this on your painting if you don't want, but kind of keeps the idea that there has been snow going on out here, and all right, I don't want to mess with that too much. I think that's probably good enough. A few more marks here. All right, I think I'm going to stop, folks. I think I'm about done here. Might think of some other things to do here, I don't know, but right now I'm kind of out of ideas. Put a few more of these in. Okay, let's see what that looks like. Whoops, here. Okay, that's not too bad. I think that shows the field. It looks entirely different than the original photo in terms of the colors and composition. But you have that original photo that you can work with. You can use it for your own purposes. And I'm just kind of cleaning up a few items here that I don't want to stop. That's my problem. I gotta stop here. Let's stop. I'll get my script liner out and throw my name on here, and Yeah, those big trees on the right, they're coming down to the ground, Rocky, but they're not all the way to the ground. I don't want to block that off totally. I wanted to leave some snow looking through there, so I'm going to put a few more things like this. They're sort of, is that a little better maybe? And I'm going to get some dark paint with a lot of thinner in it here. And over here on the left side, I'm going to throw in my block signature. Has to be more darker than that. Come on here, give me some paint. There we go. All right, folks. I think that's going to do for this painting. Oh, Lindy's birds, I forgot. Thank you, Rocky. Boy, I tell you, I had them in my sketch. I don't know if you see my sketch over here, but I've got them over there. See my little sketch? I put them right there. If it weren't for you, I'd be forgetting. All right, well, I got this brush with my thinner in it. I'm going to put a few. You don't want to make these too big, because if they're way too big, they don't look really realistic. Because if they were to fly to where you are, they'd be as big as a pterodactyl or something, because they're supposed to be off in the distance. If you want them over those mountains, if you want them overhead, you'd make them larger. But I typically like to see them out here. All right. That will put a little life in there. And I want to thank you. I'm going to zoom back and say, I hope you like this. I hope you give it a try and get the images from my website. The links are all down below. And try it and see how you like it. It's kind of fun to take a big photograph like that and shrink it down and take just a small quadrant and try to make a painting out of it. I can go back and make other paintings out of the same photograph. So that's a fun thing to do. So if you get those references off my website, and if you like the music, look up AntonioRomo.com. He's the pianist that gives me the music that I use. And check out Jack Bell's photography. He's got a Facebook page, and he puts beautiful photographs out there 6-8 times a day. I see them. So I grab some that look like I'd like to try to make a painting out of, and that's how I get them. And that's how I got this one. If you like this, please share it with your friends and subscribe if you're not a subscriber. And so I think that's all I want to say today. So until I see you again, this is Larry Hamilton saying so long for now. Bye-bye.